Thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. We have here, I'm joined by Jock Clear. Jock Clear,
Right.
senior engineer at Ferrari, Scuderia Ferrari, and leads the Ferrari Academy as well. An impeccable career, very long career, Mercedes-Benz, Ferrari, Michael Schumacher, and I could put so many names. I'll let you introduce yourself in a second. And then Rajiv Shesh, thank you for joining us, Rajiv.
My pleasure.
Chief Revenue Officer at HCLSoftware. Joke, why don't you tell our
Yeah, well,
audience?
firstly, Dario, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for inviting me, and welcome to everybody. Yeah, so I'm an engineer by trade, so I have an engineering degree, and I've only ever worked in F1, basically. So I got into the sport in 1988, and a lot has changed in that time. But over that time, I mean, I was never the best engineer. There's some much cleverer people than myself around. But what I did recognize was that I did a reasonably good job of bridging the gap between the human and engineering. So the ergonomics and getting engineers to understand drivers and getting drivers to understand engineers. Because ultimately an F1 car is the sum of many, many parts. But of course, it's driven by a human being. And how he performs on the day is what everybody's measuring. You know, that's what we're all talking about. That's what we're all here to do. But him doing that is all about him understanding a racing car. So I've sort of specifically looked for opportunities to work with the best. So I've personally, I engineered Jacques Villeneuve to the World Championship in '97. And then we started our own team, basically, which was BAR Honda. British American Racing, and that then morphed into Brawn. So I engineered Rubens Barrichello during the Brawn years when Jenson Button won the championship, and then that became Mercedes-Benz. So Michael Schumacher then came, I engineered Michael for 3 years, and then Lewis arrived and I engineered Lewis for 2 years, and then I came to Ferrari and worked with Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Raikkonen, and obviously now I'm driver coach for Charles Leclerc. So 7 world champions I've worked with personally, and that gives me a great insight into how elite athletes think, you know, what makes those guys special compared to the other drivers who are, of course, super talented, but they're not quite where Lewis is, they're not quite where Charles is. And I like to recognize the differences and then translate that to what the car requires. You know, tell the engineers, this is what you need to be doing with a car to give the driver the sort of feeling where he's, you know, it's like a hand in a glove. I feel like I'm part of the car. Now I can really attack. And that is a bit of an intangible. So it's a bit of, you know, a bit of that human factor, but of course I'm technically based. So that's my background.
That's awesome. So much experience, so many names, right? That if you like Formula One, you've seen over the last, 15, 20 years? You know, and many of them being world champions. Amazing. My name is Dario Debarbieri. I promise I'll give you more than a pretty face at the end of this session. The reason why we're here, obviously, is our partnership with Ferrari. And the story of the partnership is very, very short. We are quite of a new company. We are only 5 years in the market. So, you know, even if it's impressive or you're surprised about it, it's really a big part because in the last year, we have partnered with Ferrari, and the name gave us an incredible push into our brand, which was strategic. You know, Joke was talking about high performance, right? And high performance is what it takes to have a great software company, right? Your software needs to work. Yeah, the expectation is that you turn it on and it actually works, right? And that's what we are aspiring for. And when I took this job, I'm the CMO of the company. Rajiv, thank you for giving me this job, the best one in my life. The one mission was to actually transform the brand HCLSoftware into a brand that is known by its reputation, its quality, and is globally known, right? So the first answer was Ferrari, right? Formula One, Ferrari. We need to partner with a company that understands design, understands high performance, goes by technology, and is driven by passion, right? And so we have many commonalities with Ferrari, and we thought like the due diligence Ferrari did to work with us as partners, the same we did on our side. And here we were in a few months signing a partnership contract with Ferrari, which today we're very, very proud. It worked both ways because the reason why you know more and more about HCLSoftware in part is because the quality of the products is amazing, but also because of Ferrari. So I'm very proud to be here. Rajiv, our technology is an amazing technology and is used by Ferrari too. Can you share with us what our technology does, very high level, with Ferrari and how it helps Ferrari?
So I'll talk briefly about it, but I do want to share with you a little anecdote, as to why Ferrari. I mean, why did we think Ferrari? And we were, some of you may not be familiar. Dario and me were sitting in Rishikesh. It's a part of the Himalayas, beautiful location, the Ganges River flowing. And he was telling me there are several options, Rajiv. So I said, no, there's only one option, and that is Ferrari. So we made our jobs quite difficult and challenging, because while we were picking Ferrari over everything else that was available to us, Ferrari was picking HCLSoftware up as well in the same journey, and there were quite a lot of similarities. HCLSoftware actually engages with Ferrari in two areas. One is development of low-code software, and second is use of HCLSoftware in the security area. And so these are two areas in which we are engaged, and we continue to evolve this journey with Ferrari, in this. But I do want to, so as a part of this relationship, I went to Abu Dhabi, right? The first one where we launched our partnership. And I saw something remarkable that I had not seen at that race. And I want to ask Jock a question, if that's okay with you, Dario. So what I found was that there's a team of 40 people, is that right? About 40?
Yeah, about that.
Each one virtually functioning pretty much independently with just a goal of winning the race and to shave off 0.2 seconds or 0.02 second from a lap. There was nobody telling somebody that do this or do that. Pretty much independently, everybody was functioning. So talk to us a little bit about that. How do you give that empowerment to every member of the team delivering that performance? For a driver to be able to have that kind of confidence in the machine you give in the driver's hand.
I think it's a great question, and it goes straight down to the nub of F1 really. That if you're going to offer people an insight into elite sport, if you're looking at what Charles is doing in the car, you're going to think, how does that relate to what I'm doing? And I think Rajiv has hit the nail on the head there, is you look at an F1 team and it is a little microcosm of what has to be right in every organization and almost in people's lives as well. You look at the way an F1 team is structured and the way it operates and the pressure that is inevitably pinnacled at either qualifying or race, either a Saturday or a Sunday. And you recognize that when it comes down to that crucial point of a weekend, you cannot not trust the guy next to you. It's a cliche in battle. It's a cliche that the armed forces will live by, and we're not quite taking risks that they are. But we are in that sort of pressure scenario where it just doesn't work if you start to question what other people are doing. If you start to think, I'm not sure he's really on top of this, I better just go and check what he's doing. So when we get closer and closer to the real coalface, all of our guys know what to do, and they know what their role is, the first thing you say when you say to someone, what's your job? They need to know what is their role in the organization. Because if they don't know what their role is, how are they not doing your job? If they don't know what your job is, it's crucial to what we're doing is that every guy in that team knows exactly what his role is. The driver knows exactly what his role is. And when push comes to shove, when the crunch moment happens, okay, I've just got to trust that the other guys are going to do what they're going to do, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And actually, that always works. And people often say to me, so again, anecdotally, if you watch Formula One, if you're a fan of Formula One, you'll know that over the last couple of years, people have said to me, but Jock, how come you made so many mistakes on strategy in 2022? And I'm going to say, because that trust didn't exist, because suddenly people were asking people, are you sure? As soon as you ask someone, are you sure? You're disempowering them. You're saying to them, I know you made the decision, but I don't trust the decision you make. I'm second guessing it. That's never a good thing. And we've evolved from there, and we've recognized, because we're in that pressure cooker environment, we've recognized very quickly, okay, this is the key factor. As soon as, and people's other feedback to me would be, yeah, but couldn't Charles have made the decision? Couldn't Charles have said, I'm not going to pit this lap? He's intelligent. He knows that the one thing he cannot do is show distrust in the team. He might know it's the wrong decision, but he would rather make the wrong decision and say, all of us afterwards, we did the wrong thing, than say, okay, I don't trust any of you guys, I'm going to make the decision for myself. Because if you do that, you now have to go and get a whole load of new workers, because those ones are suddenly thinking, okay, you don't trust me, I might as well leave. You clearly don't value what I'm doing. And that's the value of a very good driver, is he knows, today I might be doing the wrong thing by following their lead. But tomorrow I'll win the benefit by showing that trust and saying, okay, we're going to do this together, and if we do it wrongly, we'll deal with it. And that trust gradually builds, and it doesn't build overnight. That's the point. You can't just solve these things instantly, because you need to build that trust. You need to build that, okay, he did trust me. We made the wrong decision, but he didn't question me. We did trust the decision, and our process was not right. So we work on the process, and that empowerment grows rather than destroying it in one easy. And that's what you see at every level in F1. And we have to remind our teams, within a team, the teams within a team, the people building the car, the people designing the car, the people buying the parts, the people quality checking the parts. We need to persuade them that they are just like the pit stop crew. They're not doing their job in 1.9 seconds like the pit stop crew, but all 16 people in that pit stop know exactly what they have to do, and they know exactly when they have to do it. Now that spreads out to the whole thing, to the whole annual budget, to the whole annual program. What do I have to do, and when do I have to do it by, and how long have I got to do it, and what's the guy next to me doing, and what's this guy next to me doing, so that we can work together. And that, if you watch a pit stop, if you slow it down and play it at a fifth of the speed, so you've got 10 seconds to look at a 2-second pit stop, and you just see the synergy, you see how closely everybody is interacting with each other without clashing. That is the lesson that you carry down to every level of your organization. And unless you've got that synergy that a pit stop demonstrates, you will fall over in various areas. And again, it comes back to, people say to me, but why can't you just copy Red Bull? Because copying Red Bull, while they are the benchmark, is not looking at their car and making our car look like their car. Copying Red Bull is knowing what they're doing with the synergy of their groups, of their teams that are buying the parts, doing the quality, because that's where their speed comes from, and that's where ours will have to come from. So we can't copy it because we can't see it. And people say, cool, you can see it, there's the car, you can photograph. That's the end result. That won't tell you anything about why they're that little bit ahead of us. And let's face it, they're 1.5 tenths of a second ahead of us. That's nothing. But in our world, that's everything.
Thank you.
That's amazing for an enterprise to be able to perform at a pit stop level or achieve what a pit stop achieves is a dream, right? Because that means that every single part of the company has come together to do software, to sell a deal, to do anything, right? And so the pit stop is like the
And that might be utopian, but it's what you need to aim for.
Absolutely.
We might not achieve that over the course of a 6-month buying process, but we need to know that that's what it needs to look like, and the closer we can get to that, the more basically the more performance we're going to put on our car.
So that's teamwork, right?
Absolutely.
It's massive
Absolutely.
teamwork
Yeah.
at its extreme, I would say. And so two names, Michael Schumacher. Anybody does not know Michael Schumacher. Charles Leclerc, right? Almost seems like an eternity, right? But it's not that much of a time in a timeline. Technology changed amazingly in the car and in the real world.
Yeah.
What do you see in Formula One? There was the biggest difference between Michael and Charles in terms of technology. What changed?
So we're talking 20 years. Michael won his last championship in 2004, and we're now 2024. Yeah. So we're talking 20 years. In terms of the hardware, not a great amount, to be honest. Obviously there's been developments in aerodynamics, in materials. That goes at a fairly steady rate. But in terms of data analysis, we had the capability to measure lots of things way before we had the capability to deal with all the data that measuring was going to do. So we started a process probably in the mid-90s that was just embryonic into the 2000s, and then it suddenly took off. Maybe late 2008, 2009, suddenly we were able to collect massive amounts of data. You know, wireless technology, we were able to get it live, and suddenly we had all this information that we didn't actually know what to do with. And also, we didn't really have the infrastructure to deal with it, you know, because it was very, the tail was wagging the dog almost, in so much as the engineer at the track was saying, I need to measure this, I need to measure that. And we were just putting sensors all over the car. And what you tend to do is you get drawn into confirmation bias. So you put a sensor on the car where you think that the problem is, and you measure the thing that you think is causing you the problem. And of course, if that's the only thing you're measuring, you're going to say, there, told you, I've measured it, and that's definitely the problem. That might well be a result of the problem, which is further down the line that you're not measuring. So then we recognize this, and again, you'll relate to this, is as the infrastructure and the business and the technology world started to realize that, okay, people want data, people want to deal with stuff. It was then them, or companies like yourselves, that were coming to us and saying, you know, what are you doing with your data? And we were just like, we'd have to hold our hands up and saying, a lot of it we don't even look at. Honestly, a lot of it we didn't even look at. And it was only later on that we started to use that technology very, very productively, and because it started to become a serious cost. And of course, in an F1 team, unless you're making the car go faster, you shouldn't be there. Any sensor you put on the car is weight, and weight is the absolute kryptonite for us. That kills us. So if you couldn't justify why the sensor was on the car, so again, people were now having to think, I want that data. It's not really telling me what I want it to do, but I know it can. And that was just closing that loop. And now I think we're now, in the last 5 years, really starting to benefit from, now we've closed the loop. We've got lots of data. We're understanding how to deal with it. And we're understanding that we can make decisions based on it. And once you make decisions based on it, it needs to be reliable. And that's the next step. That's where you guys come in effectively. Because we were creating software ad hoc. We were just writing our own code. Was it reliable? Was it? Who knows? And the security wasn't even on our radar. And then you think, well, what if this is actually very, very clunky, and you're not actually, not got the fidelity? Well, your decisions will be wrong. And B, you realize that somebody else could be looking at this. Really? Yeah, exactly. Oh, right, now that's a problem. So that's when HCL came in with exactly the partnership. And I think, coming back to what we said at the beginning, this isn't, people don't ask me, what do you use HCL for? Because I don't know. We don't use HCL for anything. We have a partnership with HCL. And the reason we have a partnership with HCL is because when you sit down and talk to people at HCL, and when the people at HCL sit down and talk to people at Ferrari, we're talking the same language. we're talking, we don't have to talk about the technology in detail at this stage, because you know that technology better than we do, and we know our technology better than you do. But if we find that there is a huge synergy between what you want to achieve and what we want to achieve, and how you're going about it, then that becomes a partnership, because we're working in the same way. You see the same things we do. You see the same sort of solutions we do. And as such, that partnership, we feel, is the one that fits for us, and that will work for us, and will give us what we want. And it comes back to the trust. If you said to me, so Jock, are you absolutely happy that HCL's AdScan is doing exactly what it needs to do? I have no idea. I've never even looked at what AdScan's doing. All I know is that every time I deal with my data, it's safe. I know it's not being compromised, and I can rely on it, because I know they'll do that. And that comes back to, they're part of our pit stop. I don't have to look at the other guy and say, am I happy that he's putting on the wheel on okay? Oh, I take the wheel off, he puts the wheel on. That's what happens. And the pit stops are going well. So I trust that his wheel's going on. And that's where we've got to be. If we start looking at our partner and saying, well, are they doing a good job? How do we know? We're not experts in that field. All we know is the partnership works, we're going in a good direction, and it just feels right. And it's not exposing us to anything that we think is hurting our performance. It's actually delivering performance, because we have confidence, we can make decisions, and we have trust in the pit stop crew, if we bring it back down to those 16 people.
So I have another question to ask you, coming back to your car. Is it okay to ask about the car? There is pursuit for perfection, little difference from pursuit for excellence. You're actually chasing an asymptotic curve with a moving target. If you say you will improve by X seconds in the next gen car, you don't know what your competition is.
Yeah.
Your purpose is just improvement. How do you manage that? The motivation of the team. And
I would say that I think the value of what we can bring to the partnership is that in our environment, in any industry, you've got to have your measurables. You've got to know whether you are actually going forward, whether you're actually improving. And I believe it's desperately difficult in lots of industries to actually pin that down. And some of your accountants will try and manipulate some figures to make it look like you're making more profit than you are, blah, blah, blah. Our sport comes down to what you, and when I mean you, I mean what my mum says on Monday morning is, why were you so shit yesterday? That is quantifiable every 2 weeks, or nowadays almost every week, is quantifiable every couple of weeks. So our team can recognize, are we making progress? Are we actually going faster? And of course the benchmark is the opposition, and that's always the case with all of these industries. With all of what we do, we can only measure ourselves against the best of the best. And we can look at what we're doing and saying, are we closing the gap to Red Bull? Because they are the benchmark at the moment. And so it's around the other way. We don't actively look at how we manage to deliver that improvement on performance that you're talking about, that almost asymptotic, very, very small margins. We don't look at how to do that in a proactive way. We almost rely on the fact that when you look at what you're doing, you immediately see, in the next 2 weeks, we will see if we haven't made progress, and we will immediately be able to look back and recognize, okay, what did we do wrongly? Why are we stalled? Why are we started actually, we're looking a bit slower this week. We've maybe even lost performance, and we can immediately track back and say, okay, yeah, maybe we made that decision wrongly. Maybe we shouldn't have focused on suspension. We should have focused on aerodynamics a bit. And so we are, because we're able to be so results driven, we can recognize what sort of things are working and what aren't working very, very quickly. And then, and I would say this is what I've sort of specialized in over the last 10, 15 years, is you can step back and say, and put that knowledge now together and say, okay, when I look back at the good years and I look back at the bad years and I look back at that process after every race of evaluating where we went wrong and what we did correctly, what are the big takes out of it? And trust, is, I mean, we talk about that all the time, but you can't avoid the fact that you just have to trust the people around you, and the quality of the human beings. I mean, again, it sounds a bit of a cliche, but the quality of the human beings you've got in your organization, how they work together, how they respect each other, that's what makes winning work. It's, you would want me to say, you have to be doing this much wind tunnel time, or you have to be developing your engine at this rate. If you target those metrics, you'll never achieve them. If you target metrics of, we need the team to have the right dynamic, we need the team to have the right synergy, and people say, yeah, but how do you measure that? That, for me, is a real red flag, because I would defy anybody to walk into any room and not immediately get a feel for, there's a good synergy in here, there's a bad synergy. That person over there is not really a team player, they're not really engaging. That person over there is really engaging, and actually people are looking at that person and saying, he's my leader, I would follow him. You can get that in minutes. Now, if you're saying to me, what's the KPI for is your team dynamic? Well, you're in the wrong job, because you don't know what the team dynamic is, because you and I, and hopefully most of you out there that are engaging with human beings every day, it's just a natural instinct we have. You know when the team has good synergy, and that's how, and we know for a fact that's what works. You know, I worked with Michael after he'd won 7 world championships, and he would get out of the car and he would say, Jockey, tell me what I need to do in turn 1. And I would sit there and think, this guy has won 7 world championships, and he is still asking me, who's won no world championships, because I've never sat in a car, he's asking me what he should do. And that's because he's exactly the right mentality. He's got exactly the right mindset. He wants to know, and he trusts people around him to tell him what he doesn't know. Immediately, you know that guy's a winner. You know, if I didn't know he had 7 world championships, I'd now know this guy's clearly going to be very, very good. Because that sort of intangible is what humans understand, and the human factor cannot be underestimated.
That was going to be my next question, by the way. When you told me the story, it was quite amazing, because that is what defines a leader, right? Yeah. A true leader and team player, right? That after winning 7 world championships is willing to go to the coach and say, what can I do better? Yeah. Right? And when he already has, or you think has, all the skills, right? Still ask the question.
And there's 2 aspects to that, because he will have thought about that, because he's the kind of driver he is and the person he is. He will have thought about that from 2 points of view. He might have thought, I'm in trouble here. I need Jockey to tell me how I'm going to get round turn 1 more quickly, because Rosberg's going to be quicker than me. But he also might have thought, I think I know anyway, but if I ask Jock will appreciate, even subconsciously, that I've asked him to help me do that. And that very process of saying to someone, can you give me some advice on that? Even if you think you know and even if he's just going to tell you what you already know, that is valuable. And he knew the value of that, and he empowered people around him. And that's why he won 5 world championships on the trot with Ferrari, because everybody around him was empowered by him.
You want to talk to our audience about your academy work, because, as a mentor for the world's best, it would be a privilege to be.
Yeah. One of the, again, biggest problems, and one of the things people talk to me about is, how do I get into motor racing? I want to be a racing driver. You meet kids who want to be Lewis Hamilton, they want to be Charles Leclerc, they want to be Max Verstappen. And the answer is, that is going to be tough, because it's a very, very expensive sport to get into. So we have the challenge of trying to identify talent at as early a stage as we can. And statistically, it's a flawed model, because so few kids have ever been in a kart. If you want to start a football club, you could go anywhere, any country in the world, and go to every football club and say, who's your little football team, little village football team, and say, who's your best 11-year-old? Okay, and you take him, and he's going to be good. You know, he could be in the smallest little village in, you know, in Egypt or Kenya, and he'll be quite a good footballer because they've established this guy's a pretty good footballer. And you bring all of those together and suddenly you've got 50, 60, 70 kids who are very talented. I challenge you to go out and find anybody who's ever sat in a cart. You know, you can count them on the fingers of one hand. You go to the village and say, anybody done any karting? No. Go to the next village. Anybody done any karting? No. There's no karting track here. So statistically, it just doesn't work. So we have to work really hard to, in both directions. You can't create the supply just by having a demand. You know, if we said today, right, we want 6 world-class racing drivers now, they aren't out there because the supply is not delivering. And so we have to go back to grassroots, but that's going to take time because grassroots kids don't see that as an avenue yet. They don't have the opportunity. Yeah, I'd love to be a racing driver, but I don't even know where the local kart track is. And even if I did know, I'd probably find out it's 50 kilometers away and my mum's not going to pay for that every week. So it's a really difficult struggle. What we've got to do is we've got to create almost iconic, not individuals, but the odd person that can really latch on to, and really engage with young people and say, you could do this, you could do what I'm doing. You know, if Lewis says that, all the kids are going to say, no, I can't. Yeah, no, I can't, because he's already, you know, stratospheric in terms of that terms. They've got to see the stepping stones. They've got to see the young kids who at Formula 4 level have come from where they came from, have gone on a path that they could have gone on. And until we put that infrastructure in place, that's not going to happen. But we've got to, you know, we've really got to force that issue. And that's what we're trying to do with the academy. We're trying to get enough exposure in the academy. We're trying to get enough support in the academy that kids can have this as an option because there is the financing. You know, sponsorship is all around us. You know, we're not just talking about sports. We talk about everything. Everything is sponsorship nowadays because people are in partnerships. HCL will be in a partnership with us, and they will, you know, they'll engage with our academy and they'll look at what we're doing and say, yeah, we'd like to help you in that respect. If we can grow that, we can then make it that it's possible for young kids to say, I'd like to go karting. And as soon as kids think they can do it, enough of them that will do it that the talent will out, as we say in English. Enough of them that will do it that we'll see some really talented kids very early on, and then you start the process. And once one of those has got through to F4, F3, and the kids look up to them, then more and more follow. But it's really starting that process. I'm sorry to say, we're this far down the line. You know, motor racing's been around for 50 years, 60, 70 years. And we're still struggling to get that flow of talent from the kids. It's a tough act, but the academy is so rewarding because you're working with young kids, and that's fantastic. And you're giving them, at the moment, you're giving them an opportunity that they absolutely wouldn't have anywhere else in the world. But we've got to expand that, really.
You know, it's you can draw a parallel even within our industry, right? Because it's very difficult to find engineers, you know, a constant engineering flow of software engineers to come and join our company. In fact, when our chairwoman went to see the race at Monza, that's when we started discussions about the academies, because she said maybe Ferrari can help us and the brand come to India and help us recruit younger students, because just the brand Ferrari, right, brings more people to us, which is another massive important reason of why we're partnering with Ferrari, right, to attract that new talent and attract younger talent, not just younger talent, but also younger talent and diversity, right? So
Dario, I have one request. You know, this audience is here with us.
Yeah.
And we've got great Jock with us.
Yeah.
They have an opportunity. We've got Santosh here, who's an environmentalist and a sustainability guy.
Let me, before we open with the questions, I'll just make one more comment, and we close and we open up for questions. Is that okay? Yes. Is that okay, Santosh? Every company, I think we spoke about very important things, right? Teamwork, skills, development, precision, data, security. I think those are all important things. Now, every company at this cycle goes through one important thing, which is setting targets for next year. I'm interested personally. What's happening this next year with Ferrari?
Well, now you put me on the spot. That wasn't on the brief, that one.
It was not on the brief. If you had to set your own target, let's put it that way, where do you think Ferrari is going to be?
It's always a difficult question to answer because you simply don't know what the other people have managed to achieve in the sort of winter period. The winter period is the period when most of the development happens on each of the year's cars. I say winter, it starts nowadays in about July, August, and it goes all the way through to end of January. That development period is when teams are developing in parallel to the second half of the season, so they're not bringing stuff to the last few races. They're developing in parallel for the beginning of the next year. So that's a 6-month period almost, and we don't have any visibility on what other teams are doing. So we don't know what the competition is doing, and of course, as I said before, we're only measured by the competition. So we have to set ourselves targets which we believe will be ahead of the rest of the field. We have to be realistic in terms of there's no point in setting stretch targets which are absolutely unobtainable, but similarly we have to identify stretch targets that are going to push people to find every bit they can and are realistic. All I can say is we have met those targets and slightly overachieved on those targets. And knowing what I know, with my experience, I think we will be a step ahead of where we were last year in relative terms. I see McLaren as a direct competitor. I think they've made good progress recently. And I think Red Bull will struggle to make the kind of gains that they made a year ago and 2 years ago. They'll start to flatten off because they will be reticent. What tends to happen when you start winning is you sort of think, well, we don't want to go too far away from what we're doing because we're winning. So you take less and less risks, and you start to be a bit more complacent, a little bit more conservative. So I think they will flatten off. Anyway, to answer your question, I think we will be much closer to Red Bull. I think in absolute terms they're probably still going to be slightly ahead of us, but that's not the key because this is a sport. So that's a bit like asking Man United if they're going to beat Liverpool next year or going to beat Man City. They don't know that, but they know that once they can get into a game where it's going to be really tight and they can put pressure on, anything can happen. And that's the important thing. We are going to be close enough to Red Bull this year that we are going to put pressure on them, and they're no longer going to feel like it doesn't matter what strategy we do, we can easily win this. It doesn't matter if we have to box now because we'll just overtake them again later because we've got some advantage. They're now going to be thinking, okay, if we don't get this strategy call right, we're going to lose. And once people are under that sort of pressure, a bit like we saw with the end of the Mercedes era, when Red Bull put them under pressure, suddenly Mercedes started making mistakes. The team that had won 7 consecutive championships and it all looked easy, suddenly Red Bull put them under pressure and they make strategy errors and they start doing things wrongly because once people are under that pressure, you get exposed. And as soon as we get close enough to put Red Bull under that pressure, they will start having to do things they haven't had to do for the last couple of years. And they'll be out of their comfort zone. And once that happens, the game changes. And that's where we need to be really ready to pick up what we can. So it's going to be an interesting year. It's certainly not going to be another walk away for Red Bull, I don't think.
That's an amazing, amazing answer. Thank you. I think you're giving every Ferrari fan a lot of hope for this year, right? Is that right? Very good. So that's the end of our questions. Thank you, Jock.
I think any questions, yeah.
Santos?
So it's kind of 2 simple questions. One is we are in WEF 2024, so any panel which doesn't discuss AI will be penalized. So my first question is, when would AI beat an F1 driver?
Well, if you mean by that, when will AI be able to do a faster lap time than a driver? I don't see that in my future, certainly, but I'm retiring in a year's time, so no. I don't see that happening for the foreseeable future, simply because I know how complex the challenge is. I think what's great about the formula at the moment is it's got big rubber tyres on it, which are, with all due respect to Pirelli, rubbish. I mean, the Pirelli tyres are very good, but big rubber blobs are really, really difficult to engineer to the kind of degree that an AI driver would need for it to be able to do its stuff, if you see what I mean. So there's always going to be a lot of unknowns in how quickly you can drive a racing car. And certainly AI will get to the point very soon, and I would imagine in the next 5 years, where it can do one lap faster than a driver on one given day. But if it has to do the same again the next lap, it will struggle. And then if it has to race side by side, I mean, you can imagine where we might be if and we can all envisage an AI driver or an autonomous F1 car in a year, in 2 years' time. We can also all imagine what the first race of that series would look like with 20 of them going into the first corner. Now, I think that would just be carnage. However good the controls guys are, they're going to learn a lot in those first races. And then they're going to say, okay, this may take us another 10 years to work out how to get 20 of them to go around a circuit and not crash into each other. So the first answer is, from a technology point of view, I think they could do a lap faster than a racing driver within 5 years. They won't be able to race with each other for 20 years, maybe. And it's all irrelevant anyway, because Formula One is a human driving a racing car. So you can do a university project, if you like, of taking a car around a circuit, but that isn't F1. F1 is a driver driving a racing car. And when it doesn't have a driver in it, I don't think anybody will be interested in it anymore.
Can I mean, I just had one question, because...
You've had one already, so you have two questions.
One more. Because I am the lead for sustainability. I had to ask something around sustainability in the sense that we are talking microseconds, and efficiency is one of the key.
Yeah.
And if you really look at, the natural systems, that's where the most efficient, whether it is aerodynamics, whether it is, the natural system works in the most efficient manner. So does Ferrari learn anything from the nature?
Sorry?
Does
Does
Ferrari learn
anything
from nature?
nature?
That is a question I have not been asked before.
Aerodynamics is nature, right?
Well, absolutely. Aerodynamics is nature. I mean, certainly if you look at what birds do, the answer is almost we never stop doing that. It's sort of, when you present it like that, it sort of clashes with me, and I think, how do we look at that? But then now I'm sort of thinking about it a bit more. We do that all the time. Isn't that what physics is? When we look at aerodynamics, we're very much basing stuff on what we've learned for many, many years about the aerodynamics of what goes on with things that have aerodynamics involved, and that's birds and anything in that sort of realm, but also all sorts of things, fluids, all of what water does when it flows down a mountain, all of, if you look at the amount of effects, the Coanda effect that we use on exhaust blowing, which is simply what happens when the water goes round a corner, all these sort of things, we are constantly looking at physics. And so we don't say, what's nature teaching us? To us, physics is nature. It's certainly not man-made. So physics is what drives us, and it's a frustration as a qualified engineer. It's a frustration in a lot of modern-day conversations when you talk about sustainability, when you talk about electric power and the usage thereof, when you talk about fossil fuels and people's perception of how these things work and how it's not aligned with physics. And you think, the fact is the physics just doesn't work unless the physics works. It's great. Physics doesn't change. Wherever you go, physics doesn't change. And people say, well, it's different on the moon. No, it isn't. Physics isn't different on the moon. Things do things differently on the moon because of physics. Physics is the same everywhere. And that's what's great about physics. So we, again, because we're so results-driven, we're not going to get drawn into doing things that aren't simply making the car faster. and people say, yeah, but you're burning so much fuel. You would not believe how efficient an F1 racing car is, because it goes very, very fast, and it weighs quite a lot, and it does it with a very small engine, and it doesn't use that much fuel. When you look at how much energy it's putting into itself, when you compare it to a kettle, it is 1,000,000 times more efficient than a kettle. And that's because we only do things that make it go faster, and the laws of physics tell you it'll only go faster if it's more efficient. It's simple. You'll only go faster if you have more downforce or less drag. That's the physics of it. And if you have less drag, you'll simply be more efficient. Efficiency is a result of what we're doing with the physics. And efficiency always makes you go faster. So because we're results driven, we are super efficient. People don't realize that when we developed hybrid engines in 2014, we suddenly became 33% more efficient on fuel. But people didn't sell that, because, it's a Formula One car. It's burning huge amounts of fuel. It's not. It's doing it's creating a huge amount of energy with actually not much fuel. And that's really efficient.
And nature teaches Formula One, I guess, every weekend, if it's rainy or sunny, it's not the same, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So,
there are a couple of more questions.
There is one more question, and then I think we're running out of time, so we will run one more question.
One or two questions, and then maybe two couple of quick
two
ones.
questions.
Jock, what an amazing career. Thank you for sharing. Clearly, what was in common.
Just a
with all
minute or
these-
two, quick ones. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
go
was in common with all these title winners was you. And the answer to his question was, for next year, let's not have that call from your mum. So when you look at data, and you were talking about, you're constantly looking at all the data to see what you can improve. Are you looking at data that is not related to the car and the driver in the context of the races and practice and development? Are you looking at data from the driver's life, from the engineer's lives? Are there things happening outside of what you're normally looking at that could have an impact on Red Bull going that little bit faster or Ferrari catching up?
I think you've simply taken a sort of unilateral view of what we would consider normal data versus different data. We look at everything. So yes, we know we obviously manage the human side. We all wear one of these because we need to know what people's sleep patterns are, because everywhere we go in the world, they're going to be 8 hours ahead, 6 hours behind. We went from Las Vegas to Abu Dhabi last year. That's a 15-hour time change and a 15-hour flight, and that was in 3 days. So you have to manage people, and you have to manage the drivers. And I come back to what I said earlier. When you have this sort of challenge with a group of humans, the differentiator is the human, not the technology. We're all clever. Red Bull are no cleverer than us. We can all do some very clever sums. The difference is how the synergies come together. And now that we have the ability to look at that in some detail, and again, we're learning we're very much on the steep part of the learning curve in all of that human interaction. A lot of sports are ahead of us. A lot of sports have looked at this maybe 10 years earlier than us. You look at NFL in America is very, very far ahead on this sort of thing. But we're learning from them, and we're now putting that sort of thing into place. But data for data's sake, no. We don't just measure stuff because we measure stuff. It's like anything else. It's a cost to us, and it's an overhead. And any of those that don't pay for themselves simply don't get done. If Fred Vasseur, who's our team principal, says to me, Jock, we're spending this much on looking at whether drivers sleep well, and they're not going any faster, I would have to say either I think they will in the future and it's going to come good, or I'd have to say, okay, we can cut that out. And again, that's the beauty of being in such a situation of an F1 team where you can bring everything down to, if it isn't actually making the car go faster, we don't want to do it. But we have to have some scope. We have to see how the car needs to go faster tomorrow, next week, next year. So we need to, we need to use some vision. But everything needs to deliver. Everything needs to carry its weight. And so we're not going to look at data that isn't going to make us give us an improvement, as you say, that isn't going to give us an edge over Red Bull. But similarly, if there's something out there that will give us an edge, we will be looking at it for sure.
Jock, we have to close now. But thank you very much, everybody. And this session, if it has left people more thirsty to know about Formula One, Jock is going to be here for some time. Please hang around, get some pictures with him, and get some of your questions answered. Thank you, Jock. Such
Thank
a
you
pleasure.
very much. Thank you.